Good morning, Mr. Mbikiwa. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chair.
Are we ready?
We are, Chair.
Yes. Miss Sambo, the oath you took yesterday continues to apply today, okay?
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, I understand.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Let's proceed.
Ms. Sambo, before we start, could I ask you just to move the microphone a little bit closer towards you so that we can hear? Ms. Sambo, we finished yesterday's proceedings with you explaining the relationship that you had with AAR from the outset, your attempts to secure an agency agreement and their reluctance to do so. If we can then pick it up from paragraph 15 of your affidavit. And can you just tell us in broad terms, after your return from the United States, how did your relationship with AAR then develop?
Okay, when I returned from the US on the first visit to AAR, I tried several times to contact Ms. Cheryl Jackson to continue the discussion and trying to probe more for us to get an agreement, a sort of an agreement with them. And I was also introduced to Mr. Shah, who was also working for AAR but based in the Middle East and looking after Middle East and Africa. And there were two. When I went to AAR, I talked to them about the components bid that normally comes out every 5 years from SAA Technical. But as soon as I got closer to working with SAA Technical, then I also realized that they also have quotation systems for consumables. So on item 15, I think this was a quotation for one of the consumables that I sent to Mr. Shah to quote us so that you could respond for the igniter plugs at SAA Technical. It's got nothing to do with the contract, the big components contract. It's a quotation for consumables.
Indeed, and what was what was your proposal as to how at that stage your relationship would work?
No, the quotation system is straightforward. I send the inquiry, they give me a quotation, I put my markup and I quote the client. Then if I get the positive response, then I would order and supply to the client. But I've never had that relationship with AR. I've never ordered anything from them. But for this one, yes, they did quote me, but I didn't get I was not awarded that quotation.
Then you speak in your affidavit about your efforts to set up a meeting between Mr. Shah and Mr. Musazwane. Who is Mr. Zwane?
Mr. Musazwane was the CEO of SAA Technical at that time.
And did you know him at this stage?
Kindly rephrase your question. Which stage?
At the point at which you're trying to set up a meeting between him on the one hand and representatives of AAR on the other, around January 2013.
No. I was still trying to get to have a meeting with him so that I could know him, yes.
And what were you trying to achieve by setting up a meeting with Mr. Zwane?
I wanted to introduce AAR, introduce SRS Aviation, and indicate our interest in doing business with SAA Technical, and for him as the CEO to guide in which is the route that we need to take to be able to do that. And also AAR from the beginning, from the first meeting in Chicago, they requested that I get a meeting with him. So that's what I wanted to get, an appointment with him so that AAR can come and they could market themselves better. I was not technically savvy at that time.
Can we then turn to what you describe as the first bid, the first SAAT bid? And here you describe a tender. What was the tender for?
It was for the supply of aircraft components for various aircraft types at SAA Technical.
And you say that you downloaded this bid document and sent it to Mr. Shah and Ms. Jackson. What was your proposal in doing that?
It was a follow-up on the discussion that we want to do business with them, and the tender was an open tender. I downloaded it from the SAA website and sent to them and said, now this is the opportunity for us to get that deal on the table. Yes, the tender, let's respond. If we get it, then it will create that opportunity for us to go into the next stage of a full partnership or an agency agreement.
And you say that you then visited the AAR offices again in around March 2013. What was the purpose of that visit?
The purpose of that visit was to show AAR the sincerity and how I really wanted to do this, how much I really wanted to do this. I used my own cost at my own time, went back to say, here I am, I still do believe there's an opportunity to supply SAA Technical and then the rest of the continent. Can we please have an agreement in place? Still, I didn't get the agreement.
Before you went there, had they responded in any way to the correspondence you had sent to them, alerting them to this bid?
Yes.
Or what had been their response?
Regarding the bid, Mr. Shah then decided to come to South Africa to come and work on the bid with me. So they did positively respond. And prior to that, also the Department of Trade and Industry at the embassy in Chicago, between 2011 and 2013, they've been also probing AAR to engage with me. So there's been communication.
So after you had sent them the correspondence alerting them to this tender, and before you went there in March, they responded positively in terms of wanting the two of you to work together on this bid?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
You say that part of your reason for going there was to formalize the relationship between SRS and AAR. Were you able to do that in any way?
Unfortunately not. AAR said to me they will sign a teaming agreement with SRS when we respond to the bid. That is applicable to the period of that bid. But there was no long standing agreement.
Before you went to Chicago in March, you said that Mr. Shah responded and wanted to work with you on the bid. Did the two of you do quite some work on the bid before you went to Chicago?
I will need to confirm there are details of when Mr. Shah came to my office. Can I just find the details to respond to that?
That's fine, yeah. I just want to see what progress, if any, the two of you had made before you went to Chicago or in March.
Ms. Sambo, I think paragraph 25 is the one you're looking for.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Shah came to our offices after I came back from the US. So they responded positively that they would work with me, and hence I also went across to Chicago. Then when I came back, Mr. Shah came from Dubai side, from the Middle East, to then come and work on the response for the bid with me.
Would this mean that the two of you didn't work on the bid before you went to Chicago in March?
No.
No, you did not, or do you mean you did work together on the bid before you went to Chicago in March?
No, we did not work on the bid together.
Okay, but
But
had they responded to the correspondence at that time before you went to Chicago in March?
Yes, they had responded.
And the response was positive?
It was positive, yes.
Okay, so when you went to Chicago in March, did you want to concretize the arrangement in the light of the positive response?
Yes, because now there was a bid
Yeah.
that we could both respond to.
Yes.
And AAR said, yes, we will sign a teaming agreement, but as far as this bid is concerned.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You say that shortly after your trip to Chicago, you introduced AAR to someone in the Department of Trade and Industry. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, one of the requirements on the bid is for any international or multinational company that seeks to get a contract that is worth more than 10 million US dollars, then they have a requirement to comply with the 30% localization in a form of NIP, which is the National Industrial Participation Program. So that program resides within the Department of Trade and Industry, and the lady who was responsible for NIP, the National Industrial Participation Program, was Miss Mamela Developed, whom I sent an email to introducing AAR and indicating that we're responding to this bid and would like to get more information in understanding what the program was all about.
Well, Mr. Mbikiwa, you might wish to just spell that surname or for the transcriber or the Ms. Nomvula, is it Tsatsi?
Tsatsi, that's Tsatsi.
Yeah, just so that the transcribers won't write something that we can't even understand.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And you can do the same for all the names that are might not be easy for somebody to spell if they don't see a document where they are written.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Sambo, you did at some point conclude an agreement with AAR. Is that right?
Yes, the teaming agreement for this bid.
And tell us about the teaming agreement.
The teaming agreement was drafted by the legal department at AAR Corporation, and it was emailed to me. It was talking about us responding to the bid, and that and it was actually outlining what their responsibilities would be and what would the responsibilities for SRS would be. I would guess we will see the teaming agreement on the evidence. I don't remember the full agreement as it is, but we can refer to it.
No, sure. I would like to go there very briefly. Could I ask you to turn to page 76 of your bundle? That is at tab 9.
Yes, I've got it.
And if you turn over the page to page 77, you'll see under 2.1a that the first of the objectives is that the parties agree that the objectives of the SART program are to work together to propose a component SART program to SART and to consequently jointly identify the technical, industrial and market requirements for such a program. Can I ask, if you just look further down the page at principles of cooperation?
Yes.
SRS-A, that's SRS Aviation as we've been calling it, is that right?
Yes.
When it says provide support to AAR in winning the SART program by providing intelligence, what does that mean?
We really didn't unpack it, but for me, I believed that is for me to do market research. That's what I believed.
And from what you've told us so far, introducing them to NIP, trying to set up a meeting with Mr. Zwane, would it be fair to say that part of your role was to introduce AAR to SAA and to the regulatory requirements in South Africa?
Yes, that's correct.
Can we then talk about the process of preparing that first bid submission?
Yes,
You did that with Mr. Shah, you say.
yes.
What did that involve?
It involved the technical aspects of responding to the bid. Every bid comes with mandatory requirements, and part of the mandatory requirements was the submission of all the compliance documents from SRS Aviation, such as the tax clearance certificate, the BEE certificate, the full registration documents from CPIC, the Department of Trade and Industry. And Mr. Shah was responsible to respond to the technical part of the bid. Then, once we compiled the two documents, we bounded the document and submitted as a joint bid.
And Ms. Sambo, what was the outcome of that tender?
It was cancelled.
Do you know why?
Excuse me.
Was it
can I-
cancelled before SRS and AAR submitted their bid?
Yes, it was after the closing date. It was cancelled. I don't recall receiving a formal letter of cancellation until I inquired at SAA Technical asking for feedback about the contract. When is it going to be awarded? And that's when I received.
But you say SRS and AAR had already submitted
Submitted.
its bid
Yes,
jointly?
yes.
Okay.
Ms. Sambo, I think you were looking for the correspondence informing you of the cancellation. That's at page 91. And the email starts at the bottom of the page but carries on over to page 92.
Thank you.
Could you go to 92?
Okay. Yes. So on the 14th of August, I received an email from Miss Mamela, and she had CC'd Miss Evelyn Fallet, who was the commodity buyer for this particular contract, responding to my request for feedback. And the email reads, "Kindly take note that in light of the current cash flow challenges and the drive to significantly reduce operational costs, SAT is reviewing its major supplier contracts, hence the decision to exercise its option as per clause 3.2.4 conditions in inverted commas in the bid document to retract the bid process. SAT is planning to go out and re-advertise the tender as soon as all the internal processes have been followed, including ensuring that the tender requirements and the scope are in line with the long-term turnaround strategy. Kindly take note that everyone is allowed to bid again."
And just tell us what the date of that email was.
The date of the email was on the 14th of August 2014.
Thank you. Ms. Sambo, you mentioned earlier, and you say in your affidavit that Ms. Jackson put the U.S. consulate in contact with you. What role did the U.S. consulate play in all of this?
Okay. Post submitting the first bid to SAA Technical, AAR contacted the American Embassy here in South Africa and requested them to come and do a due diligence on my company and myself. And the meeting was set up, and indeed I was interviewed and interrogated in my office at SAA.
And Ms. Sambo, you eventually did manage to set up a meeting with Mr. Zwane. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you tell us about that meeting?
Okay.
You describe it in your affidavit, paragraph 59.
Yes. On the 16th of April, I sent another email to Ms. Botha. Ms. Botha was a personal assistant to Mr. Zwane at SAA Technical, copying Mr. Shah from AR in the Middle East, requesting Mr. Zwane's availability to attend a meeting on the 10th of May 2014 between SRS Aviation, AAR, and SAT. A copy of that email is attached in one of the annexures. That meeting eventually was confirmed, and it took place on a Saturday, the 10th of May 2014 at 1 o'clock, and the venue for that meeting was at Pigale Village View Shopping Center in Bedford View. This meeting was attended by myself, Mr. Timothy Menesco.
Particularly because there are issues around everyone, so that we know when she can't remember, then she looks at the document because she can't remember. But we know when she gives the evidence of the whole thing.
Certainly, Chair. Chair, I've been informed that we're having some audio issues with the microphones.
Oh, is that so?
Could we adjourn just for 5 minutes to try and sort that out?
Yes, okay.
In fact, it's not transcribing, so it is quite important that or recording for purposes of transcription, so it's quite important.
Okay, we adjourn to enable the technicians to sort out the technical problem. We adjourn.
All right.
told the problem has been fixed.
It seems so, Chair.
Yes, but do we know how much of the evidence that she gave wasn't captured? Because you might have to go back a little bit to make sure.
Chair, I'm told that in fact it was recording,
It-
even though it
okay.
wasn't amplifying the sound, we did get the
okay.
recording, so there's no
Okay.
issue with the transcription.
Okay, that's fine.
Ms. Sambo, you were telling us about the meeting with Mr. Zwane. Could you tell us what happened at that meeting? And as the Chair indicated, relying as much as possible on your memory of events and using your affidavit, if necessary, to refresh that memory.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. On the 10th of May, Mr. Zwane came to the meeting, and he was accompanied by Miss Mamela, who was the General Manager Procurement at SAA Technical. And there were two representatives from AAR and only myself from SRS Aviation. At the meeting, AAR was introducing themselves and the products that they offer and the services that they offer. And that is what was the content of that meeting.
And how did SAT receive this presentation?
They invited AAR to come back and do a formal presentation with line managers present at SAT premises.
Yes, and the way that this meeting went, was it such that SRS and AAR were seen as working together, or was AAR taken as working on its own?
At that meeting, we introduced ourselves as a collective,
Okay.
in a partnership. Yes.
And then you were treated as such
Yes, at the meeting.
at that
yes.
meeting, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
And Ms. Sambo, just remind us, at this point, was the tender still pending?
I don't recall, but
Your evidence earlier was that you received notification of the retraction in August of 2014.
I would need to check on the actual tender document, the closing date of that bid. I don't recall it right now.
You can
Yes.
check.
Sorry, I'm not referring to the date by which bids had to be submitted.
Yes.
But at this point, a bid had been submitted, but there had not yet been any decision.
I don't remember.
Okay. Your evidence earlier was that the bid was advertised on the 3rd of February, the 23rd of February. That's on paragraph 19 of your affidavit.
Yes. And the
You see
closing.
that?
Yes, I see it. And the closing date was initially the 5th of March, but it was then extended to the 30th of March as a closing date, yes. But the formal communication that the bid was cancelled was only received,
We can go to page
in
92
August.
for that.
yes, in August. That's the date that I referred to earlier on, which is
Page 92. And if you then go back to 91, you can see the email, the date of the email from Miss Mamela.
It was the 14th of August, 2014, yes.
Thank you. And then you describe a follow-up meeting with Mr. Zwane taking place in June of 2014. What was the purpose of that meeting?
During the first meeting at Pigale, AAR introduced one of their subsidiaries called Erinma, which is the company based in London. And that company, they had recently bought that company, and that company, what they do, they've got a software that they use to assist airlines to buy their parts and components in a most economic way, and also assisting airlines to utilize their warranties. Because when airlines don't use their warranties, for instance, an engine breakdown, it's still under warranty, but instead of using the warranty, they purchase a new engine or they lease another one. It's an extra cost, and that opportunity cost sitting on a warranty is not utilized. So AAR marketed that product as one of the ways they could assist SAA Technical to save costs. And the way it was introduced to SAA Technical, it was in such a way that it would not need a bidding process, but AAR would come in with Erinma, do a full analysis of SAA Technical, see the gaps, then show them how much they can save from the program, and only charge a percentage of the savings. So Erinma representative needed to come down from London to come and give this full presentation to the line managers, so that the line managers would be in line of what kind of information is requested to be inputted on the spreadsheet, so that a full analysis could be done. So that is the follow-up meeting that took place at SAT.
And do you remember what the outcome of that meeting was?
At that meeting, Mr. Zwane did give AAR and Erinma and SRS a go-ahead to conduct the analysis. A spreadsheet was sent to me, which I then sent to SAA Technical asking for information. But unfortunately, we didn't get a very good response back from the responsible line managers. So that exercise was null and void.
You then deal at paragraph 33 and onwards with an approach you made to Miss Mamela in order to introduce SRS as an independent company.
Let's try and let her tell the events as they unfolded, Mr. Mpikiwa.
Certainly, Chair.
Yeah, let her tell the events as they unfolded. What came next after that meeting? What happened, and so on. And if she can't remember, she can refresh her memory. But try and let her be the one who tells me what came next. What came next? Okay.
Certainly, Chair. Ms. Sambo, what happened after the second meeting with Mr. Zwane?
Post the second meeting with Mr. Zwane, I believed that I have proven to AAR that the opportunity indeed exists at SAA Technical. I had already done the introduction to the CEO as they requested, and we were already also given an opportunity to do the Erinma audit. So thereafter, I called Miss Cheryl Jackson back in Chicago and tried to negotiate again for my retainer fee because I thought now they can see that I am a serious businesswoman and I have already started delivering on the promises that I've made. And I made that call to Miss Cheryl on the 15th of July, 2014, asking them for a retainer. But unfortunately, Miss Jackson responded again to say, as a woman of color in the United States of America, she's also faced by similar challenges that black women in South Africa are faced with, where if you are a black woman in a male-dominated industry, you are not taken seriously. To be taken seriously, you need to perform 10 times more than you would to be able to hold a position of power and be able to make decisions. So she is struggling with that at AAR. So it will be difficult for her to negotiate a retainer fee for me here in South Africa, and she requested that we continue with the verbal agreement that we had in the past, that I will only get paid once the deal is on the table.
So the verbal agreement, what were the terms of the verbal agreement to which she was referring?
That was that American Foreign Agency policy that she showed me, that when American companies do business with foreign companies, they can pay up to 8% of the value of the contract as a commission once the deal is concluded.
So so you were supposed to ensure that they got the deal.
Yes.
That
So
is
through-
AAR.
Yes, through tendering process. Upon getting a success bid, then would look at the value of that contract, and then I will only be paid up to 8%. It was not even specific how much for SRS, but the document was saying up to 8%.
Maximum 8%.
Yes, so hence I worked so hard over the years to try and get this deal so that I can ultimately.
But in terms of that verbal agreement, it seems that SRS and AAR would not be partners. SRS would be like an agent who would get a commission for helping AAR to get the bid, to get the tender. Is my understanding correct?
No.
Yes.
The one part is correct, but the other component would be SRS was going to be then the BEE partner in the contract. So
Is the position that in regard to certain aspects, SRS
yes.
could be taken as an agent, but in regard to other aspects of the work, SRS would be a BE partner for AAR?
Yes, you remember I mentioned at the beginning that part of my responsibility was to do market research for them and make sure that they understand how business is done in South Africa. So one of those components was the compliance with Black economic empowerment. So when I went to AAR, I marketed my company as 100% Black, female-owned company, that through a bidding process, there's already an advantage in terms of getting points on the Black economic empowerment. So for AAR not agreeing to pay me a retainer, that was then going to be substituted by a commission when the contract is concluded, but then once it's concluded, then still participate in that contract now as a BEE partner to AAR.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And your retainer now having, your request for a retainer now having been refused, what steps did you take after that?
I wanted to make a living, and I also, through my engagements with SAT, identified an opportunity of supplying through quotation system, as I mentioned. So I went back to SAA Technical and met with Miss Mamela, and now introduced SRS Aviation as an independent local company that wanted to become a supplier to SAA Technical.
And as an independent company, what would SRS Aviation supply?
Buy and sell. We would procure the consumables, the aircraft parts that they want, find a supplier, quote the client, and upon success, then we buy and supply the component or the commodity to SAA Technical, then we invoice and get paid in 30 days.
And you say you met with Miss Mamela. I'm interested in how your relationship with Miss Mamela developed over time, but at this point in time, what was your relationship with her?
It was, I've known her as a manager at SAA Technical, and I was regarded as a potential supplier to SAT.
Can we move then to the second tender? How did the second tender differ from the first one?
The second tender, I don't recall any difference, but for me, it was the first tender reissued.
Okay. And did you submit a bid?
Yes. I also worked together with AAR in working on the bid. This time, they were more comfortable with working on their technical part on their own wherever they were, because it was coming back now the second time around, so they were familiar with what is required. And on my side as well, I compiled all the documents that were required, and we then jointly submitted the bid. With this one, they couriered the tender document straight from the US to SAA Technical, and I submitted mine in the tender box at SAA Technical, but it was the same bid.
Let's get the time frames right. The tender, when it was issued for the first time and was later cancelled or withdrawn, that was 2014 or 2013?
The tender was
When was that?
advertised in 2013. It closed in 2013, but there was no communication from SAT for a long time. Till in 2014, I sent an email asking for feedback. That's when I received that feedback from Miss Mamela from SAT in 2014.
When it was reissued, when was that?
It was reissued on the 29th of October, 2014.
Okay, thank you.
And you described the process of putting together the bid and AAR being more comfortable with the technical stuff. How did the two of you work together on compiling the bid?
We had a telephone conference. We had a telecon on various days to discuss the bid. Describe
for us the telephone call you received from Mr. Zwane around that time in October, November 2014.
Okay, in around the November 2014, I received a phone call from Mr. Zwane reminding me of the discussion we had when we met at his office, where he told me that when I work with international companies, I need to be very careful in making sure that there are agreements in place and that they don't go behind my back to work with other people. And he made an example about an experience he had at that time. Then when he called me, he asked me if I am aware that AAR is now coming to SAA Technical with a new person called Mr. Rafik Burgers. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the surname. And he has now been introduced to him as the BEE partner. So I said I didn't know.
Can you
want
spell
to
that
help the
surname?
transcribers with spelling?
Mr. Burgers, I don't see it on my file, and I think
Mr.
it,
Mbiko.
You'll find it at paragraph 42.
BAGUS.
And tell us what you did after you received this phone call from Mr. Zwane.
I then contacted Ms. Cheryl Jackson to find out why she came to South Africa and never informed me that she is in South Africa. And her initial response was that they tried to call me and also sent me an email. Then I said, I'm looking at my phone, there's no missed calls from either yourself or from Mr. Shah. Can I talk to you, because I need to understand who Mr. Rafik Burgers is and what is the relationship. Then that's when she invited me to come and meet with her at the Intercontinental Hotel in Sandton.
Okay, okay, let's try and understand this. You got a call from Mr. Musa Zwane,
Yes.
and in that conversation that he had with you, he warned you to be careful when dealing with international companies or companies from other countries. Is that right? He warned you of something. What did he warn you
Yes.
about?
When I came back from the US in 2011, I immediately started making contact with SAA Technical. That's when I got to know that Ms. Botha is the PA to Mr. Zwane. And I requested to have meetings with Mr. Zwane. And one meeting was successful before the Pigali meeting. I met Mr. Zwane in his office.
Yes, but you are going back.
Yes, I'm
aren't
going
you?
back so that you can understand. Sorry, Chair.
No, at this stage, I just want you to confirm what your understanding was of what Mr. Zwane was alerting you to or warning you about. Then we
You-
can move on.
Okay, he was warning
And
me.
if you
yes.
think he was not warning you about anything, you can say, no, he was not warning me. This is what the call was about. I just want us to take it from there.
No, the call definitely was a warning.
Yes, what was he warning you about?
That AR has introduced a new BE partner to them at SAA.
Yes. After you had told me about that conversation, later on you then said you spoke to Miss Jackson,
Yes.
and an arrangement was made for a meeting between the two of you
Yes,
at the airport. Is that right?
No,
At the
in
hotel?
Sandton.
In Sandton.
yes.
But I had not heard you tell me, maybe I missed it, that how you got to know that she was in South Africa. Was she in South Africa when Mr. Zwane called you?
Yes, she was, they had just left Miss Cheryl Jackson, Mr. Shah, and Mr. Rafik Burgers had just left SAA Technical from a meeting.
Yes. Is
With
that
him.
what Mr. Zwane told you
That's
as well?
what Mr. Zwane told me.
Oh, that they were in South Africa, they just had a meeting.
With
And then-
SAA Technical, where Mr.
Yes.
Rafik was now introduced to them.
Now I understand. Okay, so you spoke to Miss Jackson and she said, let's meet in Sandton.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then you can continue.
So tell us about that meeting.
Okay, I met with Ms. Jackson and Mr. Shah at the hotel, and I confronted them about Mr. Rafik Burgers, and I requested them to explain what was now happening. Then Miss Jackson
And who were in the meeting? Yourself, Miss Jackson, and who else?
and Mr. Shah,
Okay, that's just the three of you.
just the three of us.
Okay.
At that meeting, Miss Jackson narrated a story to me that she was in London at some point at their legal firm called Denton's firm for something else. But in the discussion that she had with the person at Denton's,
At Denton's. I think it's
Denton's, yes, at Denton's, she indicated her frustration in trying to penetrate the South African market, specifically with South African Airways Technical. And the person that she spoke to then said, do you know that we have a branch, Denton's, we've got a branch in Cape Town. We will introduce you to the office in Cape Town and see how they can assist you in penetrating the South African market. So that's how Miss Cheryl Jackson was then introduced to a gentleman called Mr. Noor Gabdi, who was a partner at Denton's firm. And Mr. Noor Gabdi then introduced Mr. Rafik Burgers to Cheryl Jackson. So that is what she told me. Then she further indicated that they have engaged with Mr. Rafik Burgers, and as AAR took a decision that Mr. Burgers was bringing to the table a different strategic way of assisting them to penetrate the market in South Africa. And they were looking at, I don't remember if they had already signed a consultancy agreement with him or they were still going to sign a consultancy agreement with him, but she indicated to me that Mr. Burgers is not coming in as a partner to AAR. In fact, Mr. Burgers was told that the BEE partner is SRS Aviation. His was then to assist them in forming a broad-based black economic empowerment structure that will then be able to assist them to penetrate SAT.
And did Ms. Jackson say who Mr. Burgers was or what his background was?
Yes, she did indicate at that time that Mr. Burgers was the CEO of Alexco Mine, and she would arrange a meeting between myself and Mr. Burgers. Yes.
We are now at paragraph 40 of your affidavit. Can you just tell us what happened next?
These introductions to Mr. Rafik Burgers happened during the time that the second bid was still, we were working on the second bid. So it was between the advertisement and the closing date. So in between there, that's when the introduction happened.
You call it a second bid for convenience, but it was the first bid reissued as you indicated earlier on, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
On my affidavit, Chair, we've referred to it as the second SAT bid on page 11.
Yeah, no, that's
Yes.
fine. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we are on the same page.
Yes.
We don't think there is a different bid. Okay.
Yes. So then I received an email that was sent in by the vice, by Mr. Robert Reagan from AAR. And in that email, he was now trying to get the perspective or to formalize this working relationship now with Mr. Rafik now as a consultant and SRS as a BEE partner in the submission of this tender. And I think, and not that I think, I'm sorry, part of Mr. Rafik Burgers' consultancy was to advise them on how they should penetrate, I think, this market. Yes.
So this meeting that you had with Ms. Jackson and Mr. Shah in Sandton, did it happen before SRS and AAR submitted their joint bid to what you call a second tender?
Yes.
So when the second tender, when you submitted your bid to the second tender, Mr. Bogus had started advising AAR.
Yes.
Was he advising AAR, just AAR, or was he advising both SRS and AAR as people who were working together?
He was advising just AAR.
Okay, all right.
Can I go to the correspondence you've just referred to? It's at page 144 of your bundle.
Yes.
Is this the email you were referring to?
Yes, absolutely.
And who is...
That is, I'm sorry, the email she was referring to that she said came from Mr. Robert Reagan, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And can I just ask you to read into the record the first sentence and the 3 bullet points?
All, Cheryl, Rahul, Jennifer, and I spoke today with the following folks about AAR's pursuit of several business opportunities in South Africa, including the recently issued RFP for aircraft component support. Bullet number 1. Rafik Burgers, a former DPE official turned businessman who is acting as a strategic business consultant for AAR in South Africa. Bullet number 2, Sibongile Sambo, a South African businesswoman who will be our BEE partner on the RFP. And finally, third bullet, Noor Gabdi, a lawyer with Dentons in South Africa who we have retained to assist our business development efforts there.
So just explain how these 3 parties were going to be working together on a single bid submission.
Post the introduction, a telephonic introduction by Ms. Jackson, there was a conference call between Ms. Cheryl Jackson, myself, Mr. Gabdi, and Mr. Burgers discussing the bid. In that telephone call, Mr. Burgers and Mr. Gabdi proposed that AAR partner with Denel Aviation as well in responding to this bid because they have a technical expertise in this market. My response was, I don't think that will be relevant looking at the requirements of the bid and what I know Denel offers as a products and services. So I suggested that there's not even enough time to start creating new relationships to respond to this bid. And I advised in that telephone call that the submission of the bid, what matters there is the price. More than, if they bring in the technical expertise, I have the BEE component, which were the key requirements of the bid. I didn't see a reason why Denel would be introduced into this bid, because the bid was already out and there was not enough time to interrogate a third party into this relationship. So by the time we ended the call, we had made an agreement that AAR and SRS Aviation will proceed as planned in the submission of the bid.
Did you understand how their idea would work of bringing in Denel into this when Denel is a state entity?
No, I did not.
I don't seem to understand how Denel would be brought into the bid. You also didn't understand?
I did not understand.
Okay.
In that email, can I ask you to go to number 2, where it says Sibongile advised that SRT will bid on the RFP at a loss. Sorry, are you there? It's
Where?
at page 144.
Yes.
At number 2.
Page 144, number 2, yes.
Sibongile advised that SRT will bid on the RFP at a loss. She reminded us that price will dictate the RFP winning bid, regardless of any political or other connections.
Well, will you start by telling me whether SRT was a mistake, it was meant to be SRS, or whether SRT is something else?
SRT is another company that was based inside SAA Technical. That was, that I also went to, as part of my market research, I visited them to understand what they do and if they're responding to the bid. And the gentleman that I spoke to, if my memory serves me well, was Mr. Mohammed. I stand for correction with the surname, and we discussed the bid, and he indicated that SRT didn't have the capacity that the other bigger players like Lufthansa and Air France and perhaps AAR as well. So they would bid, but they know they'll bid at a loss because they don't have the full resources. So from that discussion that I had with Mr. Mohammed, I was then giving them feedback of part of the market research that I've done, that one of the other bidders is going to be SRT, and they've indicated to me that they will be bidding at a loss. And yeah, that's all.
Why would anybody bid at a loss? Do you know?
He indicated to me that they don't have the kind of capacity that airlines like Air France, which was supplying at that time, would have. He indicated that should they get the bid, when Air France leave, they're gonna leave with everything that they have brought into SAA Technical, and they will have to start afresh. So if they need to be a competitive bidder, they are going to operate on the first bid at a loss because they have to capitalize to get the business off the ground. That's what he meant, or that's what I understood when he told me.
In other words, they would have a long-term benefit later, but not immediately.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And in that sentence that you read, it's indicated that you advised that price would dictate the winning bid regardless of any political or other connections. Why did you think it necessary to say that political or other connections would make no difference?
Okay, Mr. Rafik was introduced to me as somebody who's politically connected, and that is what he was bringing on the table, which I was not. And hence Cheryl said to me, I must not worry about Mr. Rafik Burgess. He is bringing a different strategic consultancy into the whole relationship. And in the discussion of how we should respond to the second bid, as stated in my affidavit, is that it came very clear that Mr. Rafik was proposing that AAR gets a letter of support from the Department of Public Enterprises. SAA was still reporting to the Department of Public Enterprises at that time. And when he was introduced to me, he was introduced as somebody who has worked with the DPE in the past as the advisor of the former Minister Alec Erwin. So that whole political, I don't know if I should call it connection, but it's what he's bringing in. And for me as a businesswoman, I was straightforward to say, even if you can have those political connections, if your price is out of place, you will not get that contract.
Thank you. Chair, I see we are almost at 11:15.
Yes,
This
you're about to move on to
I'm
something
about
else.
to move on to something else, indeed.
Okay, we'll take the tea adjournment and we'll resume at 11:30. We adjourn.
All rise.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Sambo, just before the tea adjournment, you were telling us about an email that Mr. Reagan had sent, sort of describing the partnership between yourself and SRS Aviation and AAR and Mr. Baggas. Can we pick it up at paragraph 42 of your affidavit, and can you tell us what happened after that?
Chair, can I please refer to my notes?
Yeah.
Thank you. Subsequent to that, on the 18th of November 2014, I met with Mr. Gabdi from Denton's firm. The meeting was arranged by Ms. Jackson. And in our discussion, we talked about Rafiq, who Rafiq was, and he was trying to make me at ease in understanding that Rafiq is coming to deliver on a different role than I do for AAR.
And what happened after your meeting with Mr. Kapti?
Post that meeting with Mr. Kapti, a meeting was then scheduled for me to meet Mr. Burgess. And the meeting was scheduled for me to meet him at his offices in Rosebank, at the Alexco offices. And that's where we had our meeting.
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
The purpose of the meeting was for him in person now to outline to me what his role was at AAR, and also that he has been told that SRS Aviation is the BE partner for AAR.
And is that what was discussed at the meeting?
That is what we discussed at the meeting.
What was your understanding of what exactly Mr. Bogas was going to do at a practical level in advising
What?
AAR?
Sorry, Chair.
What was going to be his advices about? Was it just business, or what exactly was he going to advise on that SRS was not able to assist on?
What I remember very well is that he had already indicated to AAR that partnering with SRS Aviation alone is not broad enough. And at that time, it was during the time that the DTI had recently announced that when they started with the compliance with BE, it was just Black economic empowerment, but they had added another element that says now it needs to be broad. It needs to be broad-based Black economic empowerment. And Rafiq believed that SRS alone is not broad enough for the relationship with AAR. So one of the tasks that I remember very well he told me he was going to do is to create a broad-based Black economic empowerment structure that can work with AAR.
Okay.
And what was your response to Mr. Baggas in this meeting when he described his role?
I was agreeable to that. I indicated I cannot block anyone if they want to add other partners, especially given that we didn't have the terms of reference, we didn't have a contract that was binding between me and AAR, so there was nothing much I could say.
And tell us what happened after your meeting with Mr. Baggas?
Post that meeting with Mr. Burgess, sorry, can I just just go through and just check my notes?
Yes, you can refresh your memory.
Thank you. Okay, one of the things that happened post my introduction to Mr. Gabdi and Mr. Burgers is that Mr. Shah came to South Africa to come and finalize the bid, because the bid was due on the 2nd of December, if I'm correct, and he was due to be in South Africa in November 2014. So I met with Mr. Shah as well at his hotel at the Intercontinental in Sandton. Where, okay, during that meeting, he then organized another teaming agreement that we were supposed to sign to submit the bid. So
You say another, was the one that had already been signed before?
yes, when we submitted the initial bid, the first one,
Yes.
we
you
signed
had
the teaming
one.
agreement,
Yes.
and with the cancellation of the bid,
You needed to sign another one.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So do I understand correctly that it was a teaming agreement per bid?
It was, yes, indeed.
And tell us about the process of preparing the bid with Mr. Shah.
Mr. Shah came with the technical, he worked on the technical bid. I didn't work on the technical part of the bid. Remember, it was emailed to them. They started working on it. So the technical bid, most of it was done by the people in Chicago. Mr. Shah was playing more a role of a business development person for AAR, for stakeholder management, relationship management, and also making sure that the bid is submitted on time, that we all work on what we require to work on and it's submitted on time. So that's what we discussed.
And what happened after you prepared the bid submission?
Maybe before that, you said Mr. Shah was working on the technical side of the...
Coordinating that,
Yeah.
yes, coordinating the technical,
And SRS was working on what part?
with the compliance, the regulatory compliant documents, your
Okay.
tax clearances and,
Okay.
yes.
Did you then submit the bid on time?
Yes, that's the bid that was couriered from Chicago, and SRS submitted our portion at the tender box at SAA Technical.
Yes, and once again, still SRS and AAR submitting the bid jointly.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But before the submission of the bid, was there any other important thing that happened?
I would need to remind myself, let's see. Yes, according to my affidavit on paragraph 51, I was informed by Ms. Jackson that Mr. Burgers had organized a meeting between or organized a meeting for AAR to meet the Deputy Minister of Finance in Cape Town. So many things happened during the second bid. The state president moved the reporting line of SAA from Department of Public Enterprises to Department of Finance. So then Mr. Burgers organized that AAR now meet the Deputy Minister of Finance in Cape Town. This is what Cheryl mentioned to me. I don't know if the meeting took place or not.
Did you understand? I'm sorry. Did you understand what did she say? What the purpose of that meeting was going to be?
To introduce AAR.
To the deputy minister.
Yes.
Okay.
Who was the deputy minister at the time?
It was Deputy Minister Mcebisi Jonas.
Mr. Jonas has submitted a statement in response to having received a Rule 33 notice. I would like to take you just to the relevant paragraphs of that and to ask for your comment on what he has said in reply. If I could ask you to turn to page 546.
Yes, I am.
Are you there? Okay. If we can start at paragraph 13. Mr. Jonas has addressed other matter in his affidavit, which we'll return to later.
Yes.
But for present purposes, if we can start at paragraph 13. And he says, as regards the alleged meeting with AAR, mentioned in paragraph 51 of her statement, that's your statement.
Yes.
I recall being invited to a dinner by Mr. Baggers in Cape Town. Mr. Baggers told me that the dinner would be with a US-based entity which was interested in investing in South Africa. I attended this dinner for a short period of time. Ms. Jackson was introduced to me and provided me with background on AAR and expressed its desire to invest in South Africa. She provided me with information about the capabilities of AAR, which seemed impressive at face value, and it appeared that AAR may be able to assist SAA, and also that potential investment in South Africa or collaboration with SAA in Africa would be beneficial to the South African economy more broadly. I told her that I was not involved in the management of SAA and that she should speak to the relevant management of SAA in order to find out about the procurement policies which are followed by SAA about opportunities for collaboration with SAA. He then says, this meeting took place the evening before the State of the Nation address in Cape Town. The following morning, I coincidentally met Ms. Dudu Mieni, who at that stage was the chair of SAA. I told Ms. Mieni about the meeting which I had with Ms. Jackson, and that AAR appeared to have meaningful capabilities of AAR and may be interested in investing into investment in South Africa. However, I also told her that I had said that if AAR wished to do work with SAA, it should speak to the relevant management of SAA directly. She indicated that she would be interested in meeting Ms. Jackson, and I accordingly put them in touch with each other. To paragraph 15, to the best of my recollection, that was the end of my involvement in this matter. Ms. Sambo, do you have any comment on that?
No, I was not party to this meeting and I was not privy to it.
So you have no reason to doubt what Mr. Jonas has said?
No.
So we've just dealt with the bid, your bid submission, the bid preparation, the bid submission, and this meeting which took place in Cape Town. What happened thereafter?
Where about in the affidavit?
In the affidavit, we're at paragraph 52.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, towards the end of 2014 and 2015, SRS Aviation was not active in the activities of AAR at SAT. The meetings that they were having were predominantly with Mr. Burgers, so we were not active, so I don't really know what was happening during that period.
Just repeat what period that was.
The end of 2014 and April 2015.
Okay.
Yes.
You had you didn't have much interaction as SSR with AAR, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But
yes.
you do know that they were having, AAR was having a lot of interaction with Mr. Bogus.
Yes, there is an email that Mr. Bogus sent to me, including other consortium members, where he indicated that he has had meetings about 5 times or 3 times or many times with AAR.
Okay.
We'll refer to
Yes,
it.
we can go to that email. It's at
Yes.
page 163.
Would you like me to read or to give a context?
Well, is there anything particularly important in the contents of the email other than that he mentions that he was having a number of meetings with AAR, Mr. Mbikiwe?
Chair, the thrust of the email is that Mr. Baggers had been meeting with AAR. There is just one aspect in the third paragraph, the third full paragraph, starting with "at the meeting." If you could just read the first sentence of that into the record, starting with "at the meeting."
At the meeting in Chicago last week, AAR and David specifically requested that Bongani attend the meeting with the delegation.
And the next sentence, sorry.
Bongani will be leading the BEE consortium.
Who is the Bongani that's being referred to?
Post the meeting that I had with Mr. Burgers at Alexco, he confirmed that he was putting together a broad-based black economic empowerment structure. And in that structure, that's where I saw the name and got to know about Mr. More, Bongani More. I don't know if where the structure is on my file.
We'll go there in a moment.
Okay, so Mr. More, I didn't know him. I saw him on the structure, and I tried to get information about the different people that I see on the structure, but I was particularly interested in Bongani because I saw Bongani taking the role that I've been playing all along with AAR as a lead BEE partner, and this email clearly indicates that they were in, Rafik and the team were invited to go to Chicago, and they appointed Bongani as a lead for the BEE consortium. And in my quest to get the information about who Bongani was, during that time I had already known Miss Mamela for quite some time, and we would talk about my relationship with AAR, what is happening, because now I believe we were acquaintances. We could talk about my relationship with AAR. And I mentioned Bongani, and she came back to me saying that she has been told that Bongani is
Mr. More.
Mr. Moore, I apologize, Chair, that Mr. Moore is related to the Deputy Minister of Finance, Mr. Mcebisi Jonas, and the shares that he's holding on this broad-based Black economic empowerment structure, he is holding those shares on behalf of the minister. That is what I was told by
I mean,
Ms.
on behalf
Nontsas.
of the Deputy Minister. You said Minister.
On behalf of the Deputy Minister, I apologize.
Ms. Sambo, that is the other aspect on which Mr. Jonas has filed an affidavit.
Now, just to clarify, who was giving you this information? Miss Mamela?
Miss Mamela, yes.
And once again, who was she?
Miss Mamela was the head of procurement at South African Airways Technical.
Okay.
Can I ask you to return to Mr. Jonas's affidavit? That's at page 544, I'd like you to go to.
Did Miss Mamela tell you where she was getting this information from, or did you not ask?
I don't remember. I didn't ask. I didn't get where she got it from.
Okay.
Yes.
So at page 544, if I can start at paragraph 5
Yes.
of Mr. Jonas's affidavit, he says, in essence, as discussed further below, she suggests that I had an undisclosed interest in one of the proposed BEE consortia which was involved with AAR. There is no truth to this allegation whatsoever. There is also no evidence provided by Ms. Sambo for this gratuitous allegation, other than what is colloquially referred to as double hearsay, and in brackets, it is premised on a statement allegedly made by Mr. More to Miss Mamela, and in any event, Mr. More denies ever making such a statement to Miss Mamela, given that the alleged statement is false. If I can then ask you to turn to page 546, and at paragraph 12, Mr. Jonas says, I stress in this regard that I have never held any interest whatsoever in any BEE consortium which partnered with AAR, either in my own name or through Mr. Bongani More. Furthermore, I am not related to Mr. More. Lastly, if we can turn to page 550, this is a supporting affidavit from Mr. More, which was provided together with Mr. Jonas's. And at paragraph 3, he says, in particular, I deny that I have ever held any shares in any BEE consortium which was intended to partner with AAR Corporation, quote, on behalf, end quote, of Mr. Jonas. I also deny having suggested to Miss Mamela that I would have done so. I confirm that Mr. Jonas had no direct or indirect financial or ownership interest in the proposed consortium of which I formed part. Ms. Sambo, do you have any comment in response to that?
As I've mentioned, I was informed by Miss Mamela that Mr. Moore is holding shares on behalf of Deputy Minister Mr. Mcebisi Jonas. I therefore cannot vouch or deny or agree. But what is coming out of this statement is it alleges that I said Ms. Nontsasa had that from Mr. Moore, and it's nowhere on my affidavit. I did not say Ms. Nontsasa was told by Mr. Moore that he is holding shares on behalf of the Deputy Minister. That's the correction I would like to make.
We have also received a statement from Miss Mamela, which is in support of a cross-examination application. Most of that we will get to in due course, but I would just like to take you to page 516.
Yes.
And paragraph 12, where Miss Mamela says, the same Miss Sambo claims in her affidavit that I had confirmed that I did not know Mr. More, but in the same affidavit she asserts that I informed her that Mr. More was standing for Mr. Jonas. I further deny and refute the allegation as misrepresentation of facts by Miss Sambo, as I didn't know Mr. More to an extent that I would have known such details about him. So Miss Mamela denies having told you. What's your comment in response to that?
Miss Mamela did tell me that she has been told that Mr. More is holding shares on behalf of the minister. I did not insinuate anywhere in my affidavit that Miss Mamela knows Mr. More.
Thank you.
So what you insist on is that Miss Mamela told you that Mr. More was holding certain shares on behalf of the Deputy Minister of Finance at the time.
Yes.
But what you say you never said was that she told you that she got that information from Mr. More.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
If we can then return, Ms. Sambo, to your affidavit and pick it up at paragraph 53. You had just told us that between the end of 2014 and April 2015, you had had very little involvement. Can you tell us what then happened in April 2015?
In 2015, I was informed again by Miss Mamela that AAR has invited SAT representatives to visit their facilities in the United States. And she indicated to me that the people that are invited or that would be going to visit AAR was herself, the CEO, Mr. Zwane, the member of the board, Dr. Tambi, the chairperson of the board of SAA Technical, Miss Yake Gwinana. And those are the people that would be visiting. And to represent the consortia, the person who will be representing the consortia was Mr. Bongani More.
Was it Miss Mamela who was telling you this information?
Yes.
Had AAR not told you anything about this trip that was planned by this time?
No, I confronted
You were hearing
AAR
about it for the
afterwards.
first time?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what did you do when you were told this information?
Like I normally do, I called Miss Cheryl Jackson because she was the point of contact between SRS and AAR. So I mentioned to her that I've managed to find out that there is a planned trip, and I see that I'm excluded from the trip. And according to the knowledge that I have now, is that the delegation will be visiting your Chicago operations, but they will also be visiting your Miami operations, which I've never visited, but I have visited your Chicago operations twice. So I suggested to her that I would like to be part of the delegation that is coming to visit their facilities, the delegation between the facilities in Chicago, and I will not be bothering anyone, be part of the meeting. When they conclude the meeting in Miami, then I can return back, and I was prepared to finance my trip, and but unfortunately she still insisted that I am not required to be there, so I did stand down.
What did she say, or what explanation did she give for the fact that, one, they didn't include you in this delegation, two, they didn't tell you about it before you heard from Miss Mamela?
She didn't respond about why they didn't tell me, but...
Did you ask her?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember I did ask, but she didn't respond why they didn't tell me. All she mentioned is that according to the broad-based Black Economic Consortium structure that Mr. Rafiq proposed to AAR, SRS was now a component or part of the consortia. So, for this trip, they have appointed Mr. More to be a lead for the BEE consortia, and hence I was not required to be there. So Mr. More indirectly was going to also represent me, because now, according to that structure, I am part of the consortia.
Okay.
And do you know whether that delegation went ahead?
Yes, indeed, the delegation went ahead. I became friends with Miss Mamela on Facebook, and Miss Mamela would then post the activities in Chicago. I had vested interest because I regarded AAR as a baby that I brought in to South Africa. So I wanted to know each and everything that was happening. And Miss Mamela happened to be the person that provided the information directly or indirectly. So through Facebook, because now I had a sense of what was happening, so my natural instinct told me that it is time to start gathering any information that I come across that has to deal with AAR, because I have vested interest.
Before that delegation went to Chicago, did those who were part of the BEE component, BEE partners for AAR, have any discussions about each one's role and what would happen and who would play a leading role and so on? And was SRS involved in any such discussions?
Not to my knowledge. I was not party to any discussions that planned for the trip.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned that you learned about the trip from Facebook, and you've attached to your affidavit some of the photographs that you downloaded of the delegation. Unfortunately, the attachments to your affidavit are very unclear. Chair, they have been blown up in the bundle of Mr. Human, who will be coming tomorrow. If I could refer you to what's provisionally DD22C. And if I could beg leave to hand a copy of this to the witness, because I don't think she has it.
Yes, I'm just thinking whether you shouldn't have made copies of what is in that bundle for me and for her, so that could be part of this one.
Indeed, Chair, we can arrange for that to be done.
We can do
We
that.
certainly can arrange for that to be done.
Okay, now it might be better that you deal with that aspect maybe later.
Certainly, Chair.
After lunch, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll return to that. Ms. Sambo, then tell us what happened after the delegation went to visit the AAR facilities.
What happened after?
Yes.
Oh, okay. On the 30th of April 2015, Mr. Burgess informed me that he has been officially appointed as a consultant for AAR, and he indicated to me that he has had various trips to AAR as well to engage with them as part of his role as a consultant for AAR. He further introduced the consortium structure.
That's after the delegation had come back from the US?
Sorry, this is before.
Are we in the period before the delegation?
Before they went.
That's my error, I apologize. If there are events that occurred before the delegation actually went, but after you were informed that it was going, please deal with those.
One of the distinct things that I remember is that Miss Mamela requested me to assist her with the visa application because I knew very well what the process was to apply for a visa to the United States. She had never traveled to the United States at that time, and also she had to apply for an emergency visa because the time that she told me she's going to be part of the delegation, and the date that was already set for the travel, it suggested that she needed to get an emergency visa. And few weeks prior to her request, we had discussed that my employee was going to go to the US as well, but for a different reason, not at AR, for other businesses, and we managed to fast track and get the visa speedily. So she asked me to assist her in that process, which I did.
We spoke briefly earlier about your relationship with Miss Mamela. How would you describe that relationship at this point where you are arranging her visa for her?
Over a period of time working with her, we became friends. At least that's what I believe.
And tell us what happened after that, after you assisted her with her visa application?
They then traveled to the USA, and that's when I started following up on the activities because I wanted to know what was happening in the US, and that's when Mr. Burgers also confirmed that he is fully a vested consultant for AAR.
Did that confirmation come after they had come back from the US?
No, it was before they left. So when I wanted to be part of the delegation that was going to the US, I think it was May, the trip was scheduled to be in May.
You
Yes.
deal with that at paragraph 65.
Yes. So, yes, the trip was scheduled to be on the 8th of May. So when I wanted to be part of the delegation, I was told that I cannot be part of this delegation, but there will be a follow-up visit to AAR in June. And Rafik sent me an email suggesting that I plan to be part of the delegation that will be going in June.
All right, can we then pick it up at paragraph 60? And can you tell us what happened after you told that you won't be able to join the delegation?
Okay, I received a call from Miss Mamela indicating that Miss Kwinana would like to talk to me. She would like to have a discussion with me. and she asked for my permission to give her my contact details because she wanted to meet with me at my residence. So I agreed. I said, you can give her my contact details. And Miss Kwinana indeed contacted me, and we arranged to meet at my residence.
What was her position, if any, with South African Technical at that time, Miss Kwinana?
She was the chairperson.
Chairperson of the board?
Chairperson of the board of SAA Technical.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So she came to the meeting?
Yes.
At your residence?
At my residence.
And what
yes.
happened?
She came to my residence. She indicated to me that she was planning to resign as the chairperson of SAA Technical, and she was keen to know more about my relationship with AAR. And at that meeting, she also indicated that when she leaves as a chairperson of SAA Technical, she wants to get her hands on other contracts at SAA, such as there was a contract for tires, aircraft tires, a contract for logistics. I can't remember what else besides the components. But to me, she was very clear that she wanted me to introduce her to Miss Cheryl Jackson. She wanted to have a direct contact with Miss Cheryl Jackson, which I gladly gave her the contact details, and they started talking directly.
What did you understand her to mean when she said she wanted to get her hands on those contracts?
I don't know.
Did you ask her, what do you mean?
I don't remember if I've asked her what she meant. I don't know what she meant. I think she can answer that one herself. But she wanted her hands, is what she told me, on those contracts.
Well, she asked for a meeting. She came to your residence, and she wanted Miss Jackson's contact details, which you gave her.
Yes.
One would have thought that at least you would want to understand what the purpose was, or what she was talking about, because it looks like she wanted those contact details so that she could achieve what she was talking about, namely getting her hands on those contracts.
The meeting with Miss Kwinana was very brief.
About how long?
It's such a pity that we tried to get the time at which she came in at the gate and the time that she left. But as of today, we haven't received the information, because then that could prove my statement that the meeting was very brief.
Yes. Did you say she? Did you say she came to the gate?
Yes. Normally,
but she got into the house and she had a meeting with you, or did you both talk at the gate?
No. She came into the gate, drove to my residence.
Yeah.
She had a driver.
Yeah.
She came inside alone. We had a very brief meeting.
Yeah.
Where she indicated her interest on the components tender, and hence she wanted to talk to Cheryl at AR, and that she was planning to resign and she wants her hands. I was a bit,
certain contracts.
Yes, I was a bit uncomfortable, with that meeting, because a person of my capacity at that time, it was now ringing what was happening, and I didn't prolong the meeting. I didn't want to know the details of what does she mean. She wants her hands on those contracts. I didn't want to really entertain it.
Okay, how long do you think the meeting took?
It was less than an hour.
Oh,
I would
maybe
say
30 minutes? You're not sure?
I don't
No,
know,
it's fine.
Chairperson.
But
Yes.
it was a short meeting, you say?
It was a short meeting.
Okay.
And apart from giving her the details of AAR, was she suggesting that you do anything else to assist her to get her hands on these contracts?
She did ask me if I know anybody who's in logistics. At that time, I didn't know anyone that I could think of, and I indicated to her that I would tell her if I know of somebody, or I would tell Miss Mamela, because that's the person I engage with, if there's anybody that I could think of that is in logistics.
And Ms. Sambo, are you able to place this meeting in time at all?
This is one of the areas, Chairperson, that I struggle to place it in time, because there's no written document that will remind me of the date at which this meeting took place. I tried very hard to go back in time.
Was it before the outcome of the bid for what you call the second tender was announced?
Was it before?
Was it before?
It was, it would have been between the second, the advertisement of the second bid and before the third bid was advertised.
Okay. And does that help at all in terms, does that help you at all in terms of months? And I'm taking it that the year would have been 2015?
Yes, it was 2015.
The year would be 2015.
Yes.
And in terms of months, does that help you at all to say it probably would have been around which months?
Unfortunately not.
You can't,
Chairperson.
okay, no, that's fine.
Ms. Sambo, you say that the purpose of Ms. Kwinana coming to your house was to ask you to give her details to introduce her to Ms. Jackson. Does that suggest at all that it may be before Ms. Kwinana went on a delegation to meet AAR?
It suggests that, because at that time she didn't know Miss Jackson, so she would not have met Miss Jackson by this time that we met. Because you remember, she went on the delegation to the US, so she wouldn't have asked me for the contact details post the trip. So I think based on that, we can try and figure out when this meeting happened.
Okay, continue.
Thank you, Chair. If we can then pick it up at paragraph 61 of your affidavit, can you tell us what happened thereafter?
Within a few weeks or a week or so, Miss Kwinana gave me a call again, asking to meet with me, and she suggested that we meet at the Protea Hotel in Midrand, which I agreed to. I went to Protea Hotel and I found her with Dr. Tambi, one of the board members at SAA Technical. And when I got to the meeting, she indicated that she wanted to introduce me to people that she works with. And she introduced Dr. Tambi as an aviation specialist who is part of the board at SAA Technical. And also she indicated that he is originally from Sierra Leone. I think that's what she indicated to me. And then she got into the continuation of the meeting we had at my house, that as she is planning to exit SAA Technical, Mr. Tambi is the one who will take care of her interests when she's gone, because he will remain as a board member at SAA Technical. And her interest being all the contracts that she mentioned she wanted her hands on to me.
Now, just to tie that up, at the stage of this meeting at the Protea Hotel, did you
Yes.
know exactly which contracts she wanted to lay her hands on?
Yes, she had already indicated the logistics,
Yeah.
the tires, and the components.
And that was in respect of SAA Technical.
Yes,
Yes. Now, prior to her meeting you at your residence,
yes.
had you had any interactions with her prior to that?
Not at all.
Was that the first time?
That was the first time.
And do you know how she got your details?
Miss Mamela contacted me asking if she could give Miss
Miss
Quinana my details, because she is asking for that from
okay.
Miss Mamela. Yes.
Okay, so when
So I
she
agreed.
when she came to see you, that was the first time you had an interaction with her.
Yes.
Yes, and then you had this second meeting. At the Protea Hotel.
Yes.
Yes, you were still talking about that one, and how did
Yes.
the discussion proceed after she told you what Dr. Tambi's role would be after she had left?
Yes. Then she also introduced me to Miss Mdlulwa, Miss Kuki Mdlulwa, and she introduced Miss Kuki Mdlulwa as in Zulu as Ihashi. And I was asking her, what is Ihashi? Because as a person that speaks Zulu as well, I know Ihashi to be something else, you know, to be an
Well,
animal,
just say what it is.
to be a horse.
Yeah.
And she said, in her world, she may not have put it in that particular words that I'm saying, but in her
You are
context,
paraphrasing.
yes, in her context, Ihashi was a runner. And I still probed further to understand what is a runner. And she said, a runner is a person that is a go in between making deals for her. Yes. And at that meeting, she indicated to me that as part of her interest in the components tender, which is where I feature in, is that she wanted Miss Mdlulwa to go and negotiate on her behalf to AAR, that she will make sure that AAR gets the contract. However, they need to pay them, I will say them, because later on she quantified who is them, I'll come to that now, that they wanted 100 million rands to make sure that AAR gets the contract, and they want that money from AAR. So Miss Mdlulwa as the Ihashi, then she will run to go and negotiate and collect the money.
Now, at this meeting, just tell me all the people who were there. Yourself, Miss Quinana, Dr. Tambi, Miss Mdlulwa. Was
Yes.
there somebody else?
No,
It was just
it was just Yes.
The 4 or 5 of you?
It was just us. But can I just also make a disclaimer, Chairperson? The people that I remember very well were there is myself, Dr. Tambi, and Miss Kwinana. Miss Kukim Dlulwa, I don't remember very well that if she was there in person or we discussed her. That memory is failing me. I don't remember if she was there in person.
Or whether Miss Kwinana just talked about her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where in the hotel was this meeting held?
The meeting, it was in an open place. There is a bar on the right-hand side as you enter.
On the ground floor?
On the ground floor.
Yeah.
There's a bar area or a lounge area
Yes.
as you enter.
Yeah.
And as you enter that hotel, we were on the right-hand side, behind the wall.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay.
where we were sitting.
Okay. So continue with the discussion and tell us how the meeting ended.
Yes.
Continue how the discussion continued and then up to how it ended.
That is what we discussed, and I left them there. Being confused. For me, it became very clear that a corrupt activity is starting here. I want to correct something I said on my affidavit, where I indicated, I don't know if advocate could assist me,
Yes.
where I said in my affidavit, this is when I realized that we are in a corrupt mode. And I want to take the we because I was not part of the we, because the issue of the 100 million and having a runner, it was coming from the other side. I was receiving, from this side. And at that time, I was also very shocked that a figure like 100 million is just called like that. That's what a company needs to pay for to make sure that they get a tender.
But now, why did you need to know all of this? Did you ask, why do I need to know all of this, Miss Kwinana? I'm not interested in any 100 million. Why do you need to call me to a meeting to discuss this? I have nothing to say about it. Where do I feature in? What is required of me?
At that time for me, I just thought that because I have always been the BEE partner for AAR, and now she wants to be part of what I started with AAR. And hence,
But did you ask her?
I don't remember if I asked her, Chairperson, why she's involving me. But all I remember is that she is the one who even said from the beginning, Sibongile, you are not part of this 100 million. This 100 million is negotiated for myself and my people inside SAT.
Is that what she said
That's what she said to me.
at that meeting?
Yes, that's what she said.
So she mentioned to you that 100 million would have to be obtained from AAR.
Yes.
But you mustn't think that you will get anything out of that 100 million.
Yes.
That's for herself and other people
Yes.
inside South African SAA Technical.
Yes.
Okay, and what did you say to all of this?
I had no say, Chairperson. I was just being informed. I just received the information and I was just so surprised that this is how things are done. It was the first time I was face to face with such a requirement. Ever since I started my business as an entrepreneur. So for me, it was confusing. It was extremely confusing. I was just so surprised. I was so, I don't know the big English words that I can use to say, ngang mangele, you know, 100 million.
Yes. So how did the meeting end then? Or is there something else important
Yeah.
that was said at the meeting that you want to tell me about?
Yes, so the other people that are part of this 100 million, she indicated that it was Mr. Musa Zwane, the CEO of SAA Technical, and Miss Mamela at procurement at SAA Technical. So then after that I left.
Did she ask you to do anything, or SRS to do anything to ensure that this 100 million rand that she wanted was obtained?
No.
No.
It was very clear that the runner is Miss Kuki Mdlolo. No. From myself, she just wanted Cheryl's contacts, which I gave her.
But you had given her the contact details for Miss Jackson
Prior.
at the meeting at your residence.
Yes, yes.
Yes, you see, the question that arises is why did she need you to know all of this information if she was not going to ask you to do anything, and if you are not going to be part to benefit in any way or to be asked to do anything for them?
I was not asked to do anything. I would plead with the chair that she can answer why she was telling me.
Yes.
My testimony is that is what I was informed.
Yes.
I was not asked to do anything,
Yes.
but I was an informed party.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful. Ms. Sambo, are you certain that the figure of 100 million rand was mentioned at this meeting?
The figure of 100 million was mentioned at this meeting, and it was repeated at another meeting.
And can I clarify one other thing? Are you certain that Ms. Kwinana phoned you to ask for this meeting, and that you did not phone her to ask for a meeting?
I would not have anything to call her for, so she called me to the meeting, and the context of the meeting was the information she was giving to me.
You see, why I was asking you whether she asked you to do anything at that meeting is that I haven't seen her version. I don't know whether her version is here. But if she denies that there was such a meeting, she might say, why would I have called her if there was no role for her in this whole thing? It doesn't make sense. She might say that I called her to a meeting and just told her I wanted 100 million rand, and she was not going to benefit from it. I was not asking her to do anything. What was the purpose of asking her to come to the meeting? Why did I want to tell her about this illegal activity that I was about to get involved in?
They knew I was the BE partner to AAR, though there was no signed contract. But I was introduced, when we introduced ourselves to SAA Technical, we introduced ourselves as partners, AR and SRS. Why she decided to tell me, she's the one who needs to respond. However, in her response to the notice 3.3, is it?
That's
in
right.
her, oh, okay, should I get to that?
Yeah.
Well, just continue to tell me whatever you want to tell me in response to what I'm saying to you, what she might say. I don't know what she definitely will say. I'm just saying if she denies that there was such a meeting, or she might admit that there was such a meeting but deny that that is part of the conversation, this 100 million rand and so on.
Yes, Chairperson, it's my word against hers.
Yes, okay, thank you. No, but I was just wanting to alert you that, there is a possibility that they might say, but there was no purpose on her own version for calling her to the meeting because she was not going to be asked to do anything. But you say definitely she said what you say she said, and definitely the meeting did take place.
She didn't deny in her response to notice 3.3 that there was a meeting.
Yes.
In fact, on the notice 3.3, she indicated that she have meetings anyway there.
Yes.
So this proves
Yes.
that I didn't call her.
Yes.
She called me. She
Yes.
used that place as her office,
Yes.
if I could put it that way.
Yes.
But of course, she denied that she mentioned the 100 million.
Yes.
There
Okay.
were no minutes taken. It's her
Yes.
word against mine.
Yes, and even if the minutes were taken, probably they would not include that.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mbiki.
Chair, I think it's an appropriate moment to turn to Ms.
Unless, of course, we're dealing with the other matter, which I had, 2 weeks ago, where a lot of minutes were there for
That's right.
all kinds of things. Yes, okay, continue.
Chair, I think it's an appropriate moment to go to Ms. Kwinana's response.
Yes.
She filed a statement in response
Yes.
to receipt of a Rule 3.3 notice.
Yes.
If I can ask you to turn to page 502.
Yes.
And at paragraph 3, and she says there concerning para 4.1, she's referring there to the paragraph numbers in the notice that she received, I believe. I do not understand why I would tell Miss Sambo that I want to resign and lay my hands on tenders, as I would not be destitute when I resign. I was operating an audit and accounting firm, which I started in 1999. I was operating a property development company, which I started in 2000, and I was sitting in other boards which had nothing to do with SAA. Ms. Sambo called me and said she would like to meet and greet and introduce herself to me as she is doing work for SAAT. I decided to go with Dr. Tambi, who was also a board member at SAAT. The meeting was held at Protea Hotel, which is the place that was convenient for Dr. Tambi and I. At the meeting, she introduced her company as the only black female-owned company in aviation, and she owns a fleet of aircraft that she leases out. During our meeting, I learned that she, in fact, had a complaint against her partner, AAR, and wanted us to intervene. She told us that she has been an Ihashi runner for AAR since 2011, without any form of remuneration, and now they owe her 100 million rand. We advised her that SAAT cannot intervene in their business, as it is between them and has nothing to do with SAAT. I did not know Ms. Sambo at all before this meeting. Reading her affidavit, I am convinced that indeed she was an Ihashi, a runner for AAR. What is your response to that, Ms. Sambo?
This statement, to me, has no substance. It has been very clear that I was introduced to AAR by the South African government, and it was said when we went to SAA Technical. So I cannot have been Ihashi or the runner, that I didn't even know that a human being can become that runner or Ihashi, if you directly translate the definition of Ihashi. I think Ms. Kwinana is making allegations that she must bring to the commission to prove that I was that Ihashi that she suggests, and she must bring the proof that I demanded the 100 million that she's talking about. And she misinterpreted what SRS Aviation was doing. I don't own aeroplanes. I run an air charter company that is fully licensed to operate, manage, and lease aeroplanes. She misunderstood me. I don't understand where she took this I said I own a fleet of aircrafts. She must bring that proof here at the commission.
Did you, in the meeting, refer to any of the difficulties you had been having with AAR?
I did not. I did not.
Well, you see, she says in her affidavit, she admits that the meeting at Protea Hotel did take place, but she says it took place at your instance. You asked to meet with her, and she says at that meeting you told her about challenges in your relationship with AAR, and that you said to her you had been Iashi. She says you are the one who came up with the idea of Iashi. She says you said you had been doing the work and running around, but you were not paid by AAR, and you said they owed you 100 million rand, and you wanted her or them to intervene in your relationship with AAR. What do you say to that?
She must bring the proof.
Well, she says that's what you said, and you say she came and said she wanted to lay her hands on contracts and said she wanted to get 100 million rand. Did you say what she says you said?
This is a very serious allegation that she's making against me. And I have always dealt with my partners directly. Each time it's been proven as we were going through my statement that each time I had a challenge with my partners, I would confront them. There was no need for me to go to her as a chairperson. I don't see a link strategically of anything that she would have done for me. I address my issues mostly in writing, and they are on the file as proof.
Yes.
Each time I spoke to AR having a challenge, it was followed by emails. There is proof. This is the only allegation that is on top of the table right now with no proof, and according to me, with no substance at all.
Mr. Mbikiwa, I'm sorry. Does she deal with the allegation by Miss Sambo that she came to her house? I don't seem to see that.
No, Chair, she doesn't.
Yeah.
She refers to the allegation of wanting to lay her hands on contracts, which Ms. Sambo says was said for the first time at her house. She deals with that allegation, but she doesn't deal head-on with Ms. Sambo's allegation that meeting at her house took place.
Yes.
It simply isn't dealt with.
Yes. And what paragraph in Ms. Sambo's affidavit deals with that meeting? I just want to see how far that paragraph is from the paragraphs that she is responding to in her affidavit, Ms. Kwinana.
Yes, they're consecutive paragraphs, Chair.
They are consecutive paragraphs.
60 and 61.
Yeah.
Paragraph 60 is the meeting at the private residence, and paragraph 61 is the one at the Protea Hotel in Midrand.
Yes.
Ms. Kwinana responds to 61.
So she could not have not seen
It's very
the allegations
doubtful,
in paragraph 60.
It's very doubtful.
Yes. And she has chosen to say nothing about that part,
Indeed.
about that allegation.
Indeed, Chair.
Okay.
Ms. Sambo, one further question on both the Protea Hotel and the meeting at your residence. Did you tell anyone else about what had occurred at those meetings?
I had employees, yes. So my employees at that time were aware of the discussions that were moving between the different parties about this AAR relationship. Yes.
And you would have said to your employees that Ms. Kwinana had approached you and said that she wanted to lay her hands on contracts and that she was going to use a runner for purposes of paying 100 million rand?
Yes. This is something that was amazing. It's something that I couldn't just keep to myself. I needed to talk to somebody to make sure that maybe somebody could make sense to me, you know. So yes, I discussed this with my team.
Thank you. Chair, we have managed to obtain those enlarged photographs of the delegation to AAR.
Yes, okay.
If we could beg leave to hand a copy up and to the witness.
Have you marked where they should go into this, or you haven't marked into this?
We haven't done so yet, Chair.
You see, if you, would it not be better that you do so after marking them, so that when you refer to each one of them, you give the page number that will
correspond to,
yes,
to Ms. Sambo's
the
bundle.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes. Otherwise, it becomes difficult.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fine, Chair. In that case, we'll address that after the
yeah.
lunch
Yeah.
adjournment.
Okay.
Ms. Sambo, if we could pick it up in your affidavit at paragraph 66, and this is after your meetings with at the Protea Hotel and at your residence. Can you tell the Commission what happened thereafter?
Please give me a second.
Where about in her affidavit?
At paragraph 66, Chair.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thereafter, Ms. Jackson contacted me. She sent me an email and gave me feedback about the recent visit by SAT at their premises, that everything went very well. And they were, and that they were working on determining a date when AAR team would then reciprocate the visit to SAT. Yes.
All right, and after she told you about the success of the delegation, what happened then?
Thereafter, I received an invitation from the CEO of AAR, Mr. David Storch.
Sorry to interrupt you, that's STORCH for the transcript.
Mr. Storch invited me to a party that was going to be at the Paris Air Show in France on the 16th of June 2015. Initially, I accepted the invitation, but as I started unpacking the activities prior to the invitation, I took a decision not to attend the party. One of the things is I felt they wanted me to be there where they think it's necessary for me to be there, and where it's not necessary for me, then I would be excluded. And all along, I've been paying my money, I've been using my own resources to introduce them, to open opportunities to them, to teach them about the market, what is necessary for them to be able to do business in South Africa. I felt very much that I was taken for granted. And Ms. Jackson completely decided to exclude me towards the end of 2014 and the beginning of 2015 in the activities surrounding SAT. And there I am invited to go and celebrate. So I didn't attend that invitation. But when they came back, when they were at Paris Air Show, it was on the news that SAAT has signed an MOU with AAR. I sent an email of congratulating Ms. Jackson and her team in making strides in signing an MOU, which I believe gave them a leverage to be able to then do business with AAR or with SAT.
And do you remember when the MOU was concluded?
I was not party to it, no.
Do you know anything about what it provided for?
No. I did read about it, but I guess I was not interested in it, so I cannot put it as my statement here today. I guess we can just download and read the MOU.
What did the signing of that MOU without your participation mean for the relationship between SRS and AAR? What was the significance of the fact that SAT has signed an MOU with AAR without SRS? As you saw it, what was the significance?
There was no significance. When I had a discussion with Cheryl, she said this is the work that they've been doing in the past year with Rafik and his team. So it was very clear that it is something that I was not party to, and I also didn't feel that I wanted to be part of it. Hence, I congratulated them.
The BEE consortium that you told me earlier on, you had been told was going to be led by Mr. Moore.
Yes.
At this stage of the signing of the MOU, were you still part of that consortium? Because I understood you earlier on to say you were said to be part of that consortium, that is SRS.
That consortia, the structure, the proposed structure was still on the table with AAR. And my engagement with AAR was that I don't want to be part of this structure. You are welcome to include other people, but please leave me as an independent in this consortia. And during the time of the discussion with the consortia, unfortunately, my name still remained within that consortia on paper. There was no formalized, yes.
So you didn't want to be part of the
No.
of them. You wanted to remain an independent entity, having a relationship with AAR.
Yes.
And they could have a relationship with AAR if they wanted to. You had no problem.
Yes.
But you didn't want to be part of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, we are close to the lunch adjournment, and I'm almost on a new topic. There's just one email I'd like to refer Ms. Sambo to before we adjourn. Ms. Sambo, can I ask you to turn to page 208? Are you there?
Yes.
There's two emails here. One is from Rahul Shah, and then at the top it's forwarded by John Holmes, and you are one of the people CC'd. Do you see that?
Yes.
Can I ask you to read just the first 2 paragraphs of the email from Mr. Shah?
Okay, the one that says John, Chris, and Ken.
That one, yes.
All right. One of the questions procurement has for Ms. Sambo and us is about the start date in the event that we come to the terms for supporting PBH. Their contract with Air France is ending on June the 30th. The question posed by them is, if they finalize the contract, how quickly we get ready and whether we will be to support them from July the 1st. I think there's been some typo
Sure.
errors there,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
I think we get the gist.
What was PBH?
PBH is the same contract, the components contract. Sometimes it's referred to power by the hour.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And who do you understand procurement to be when it says one of the questions procurement has for Ms. Sambo?
Yes, I was called by the commodity buyer for the components contract, Ms. Evelyn Fallet, and that question was posed to me telephonically, that if they conclude the 5 months contract, will AR be ready and be able to commission the contract? That is what it was all about.
Okay. And at what point was the tender process at this stage? Do you remember?
No, I think we can just refer to the dates on the contracts, on the tender bid
All
to
right.
confirm.
Chair, we'll pick this up after the lunch adjournment.
Okay, we'll adjourn for lunch and we'll resume at 2 o'clock. We adjourn.
All rise.